Hi, how you doing? You wanna watch this thing I made? Cool. It's another backlog video, kind of. My goal isn't to conquer my 200 video gaming backlog, or to play 4 hours a day. I'm also not trying to finish 50 games in a year. I just want to play more video games, and this is my way of documenting that so that one day I could look back and re-experience some of my feelings at this time. I'm also looking for those games that hurts me in just the right way. Oh no, I'm gonna die on the way! God damn it! Oh, we won't make it! Ah yes, sweet suffering. And while playing more games is nice, the reason why I wanted to do that in the first place is that I burnt out last year. Like really badly. And I could no longer engage in any of my previous hobbies. They were all too taxing for me, even after months of trying to recover. I thought of other hobbies that required less. Something that was meant to be for entertainment purposes only. I wasn't trying to learn a new language or skill, and I wasn't trying to create anything. I just needed to have fun for the sake of having fun, which was a bit difficult to accept, since we've all been raised with this idea that we need to constantly do something productive, otherwise we're lazy and the moral failure. None of that is true though. Enjoying yourself is never a waste of time. I try to spend around 1 to 2 hours a day playing, although sometimes I'm unable to do that. And I understand it might be difficult for you too, if you have a full-time job, a house, a spouse, 3 kids, 2 dogs, a cat, and a hamster. I understand it also might be difficult even if you only have one of those things, or none of those things. But the main point is to have fun, and this is how I went about it. I thought of hobbies I used to have when I was younger. Anime can be pretty cheap, and I have a bunch of video games gathering dust in my Steam library. That's why I decided to start playing video games and watching anime. Okay, so I decided to start playing video games. I know there's plenty of videos on how to deal with your gaming backlog. I've watched a bunch of them. Too many, in fact. For me personally, I didn't even know what the word backlog really meant until recently. I always thought of it as a list of games you wanted to play and not this terrible looming pile of work lying on your desk, haunting you in your sleep.
Wearing your clothes, eating your food.
So whenever I mention the backlog, it'll be with that positive twist of stuff I want to play, not work. So even if the word didn't have this heavy negative weight behind it to me, I was still hit with decision paralysis, and I couldn't really get myself to play anything. It was just too overwhelming for someone who hadn't played a game in such a long time. Where was I even supposed to start? I picked up some of the advice given in the YouTube videos and decided to sort all my games into expected hours to complete. How long to beat was really useful for this, and I wanted to start with something really short just to get the ball rolling.
You ever wonder why we get so attached to things?
Okay, so I tried reading from a script and it just didn't work out at all, so I'm just gonna ramble instead. You play as a woman called Maria and you fix stuff, and that's it, that's the premise. The game is made up of multiple levels, and it's connected by some story bits that glues the whole thing together. It works pretty well. Really cute game. It took like an hour and a half to finish. The voice acting was nice. I thought it was charming. I never thought of myself as a puzzle person, but I'd take more of this. I'd take more of this any day. Which is good because there's multiple games currently on the market that does this. I've checked. I've added to my wish list. It's a big wish list. And there's not really much to say about it because it lasted for approximately nothing. It lasted for approximately one of my showers. I enjoyed it, and it's the first game I've finished in like a decade. I found out that I didn't find out shit. I remembered that I really like to organize stuff. So I decided to make a little star system while I was at it. That way it would be easy to check if I've done a game, you know, because my memory is shit. So assembled with care, I would definitely give it 4 out of 5 stars just because I really liked it. It felt good having finally finished a game for the first time in so long. It had like no downsides except it was short, which isn't even a downside because I played this specifically because it was short and I really liked it. I did, however, struggle a bit with the controls at some point, but that's just because I'm bad at managing a mouse these days. Like, I would click stuff, and they would just not move like I wanted them to. But it's probably a skill issue, because I suck at video games. But yeah, it was fun. So now, after having completed my first game, I was ready for more. There was this little game that was sitting in my library and it looked pretty cute, so I went with that. So that game was Stillness of the Wind. The game is basically a farming sim, and you take care of your day-to-day and just try to manage. After everyone you know has left, which is kind of bleak, you gather eggs, you milk goats, you make cheese, you farm crops, you trade with some guy walking by your house every morning, play with a stick, walk dramatically off into the desert. There's also a gun. You probably don't need it. Occasionally you get letters from your family telling you what's going on outside, and it gets interesting, let's just say that. The one advice I'd give for this game is to try not to optimize and just take it day by day. Don't worry too much about doing things perfectly. The game can get painfully slow sometimes, which makes sense considering you're playing an old lady. You're a sweet old lady, but you're still an old lady. And the game is really good at reminding you of that. Especially since it takes the whole day just to water your crops. And she needs to eat after planting about 5 carrots. Or the way she slowly hobbles around the farm. The letters you get is also really good at reminding you about how her entire family left her to fend for herself until the day she dies in her sleep or something. And it's sad because she's a cutie and she deserves everything. And eventually the game took a bit of a turn. I'm not gonna say anything about it. It was really interesting, but at the time I was not in the best place of mind. So when the end of the game came, it hit me like a ton of bricks, and I didn't like it. I was extremely upset, and I didn't want to touch the game ever, and for that alone, and for traumatizing me, I gave it a 3 stars, because it hurt my feelings. It is beautiful and full of atmosphere, and the music is wonderful, and it's calming, but by the end, I was very unhappy. That's a me problem, not the game's fault. That's how I'm doing the star ranking. It's based on how much I enjoyed the game, and I enjoyed parts of it, but it was too much of a gut punch in the end, and yeah, it's losing a bit for that. I would definitely say it's worth it though. Maybe if I played it when I was in a better space mentally, I would have enjoyed it more, but that's not what ended up happening. I finished the game at around 3 hours and was pretty ready to go on to the next one. After a couple days at least. Hopefully something that wouldn't make me cry. And that game was Oxenfree. I already played Oxenfree before at some point, and I know it has a bunch of replay value, so it worked out.
Yeah.
Oxenfree is basically a walking simulator. There's this dialogue system where you can reply in different ways. You can also just decide to not say anything and play as a silent protagonist, because we haven't been doing that for like the last 30 years or something. It's also really accurate to real life conversations, something that I also am really bad at. That means I constantly misjudge when there's space to talk, and I will accidentally interrupt people. Constantly.
I am...
Me.
So realistic. The game is also a bit creepy. It's mild enough that it won't make me want to turn off the game. Different dialogue choices can lead to different outcomes, like being able to make everyone hate you.
Ow!
I think that's pretty cool. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars because apparently I really like walking simulators, and I enjoy mild horror. I did not expect that, actually.
Does it hurt?
I've replayed Oxenfree multiple times trying to get the different endings, and eventually I just got sick of it. I told myself for the future I would only play games as long as I was still enjoying them. If it becomes a chore, it's time to drop the game. And even though I sorted my games into length, it was still too much to choose from. And this is basically where I made a proper backlog. I gathered games from my library that seemed interesting, and I went from there.
Welcome to Beacon Pines.
Beacon Pines is yet another game where you walk around and you talk to people. You play as Luca Van Horn, a young deer who just started his summer vacation. The game is basically a visual novel for the most part. What's interesting about it is that it has these branching paths and multiple endings, with most of them being bad ones. It has a pin system where you need to find words in different places. And throughout the story there are these key moments where you can add these words. Each moment usually have different keywords to use, and depending on the keyword, it will cause the story to branch in a different direction. Some keywords can only be found in certain parts of the story. You'll have to change between different branches to get the correct keyword to progress the main timeline. It's a really cool system, and I don't think I've experienced anything like it. But then again, I don't really experience much at all, since I don't leave my house. It really takes on this storybook appearance, in more ways than one. The narrator takes you through her book.
Be a little shit.
And you'll have to figure out where the true ending is. The thing that originally drew me to this game was the art. It looks like it's taken straight out of an art book. The anthro designs are really charming. There's also a bit of a creep factor to the game, as you're trying to figure out what the hell is going on in this place. It took me about 6 hours to get through the whole game, and it was enjoyable the entire time. I'm giving it a 5 out of 5 stars for being so engaging and making me want to see what's next. The character art, the background art, the sound design, the music, the drawings in the book on each of the branching paths of the story. It all looks so nice, and I'm a sucker for 2D games and hand-drawn assets. All of the games up until now have been quite short, so this time around I tried playing something a little bit longer. Pixel Cafe is a cafe management sim where you play as Pixel, a girl who moved away from her boomer parents to get some space from their lack of accountability. I'm sure a lot of you can relate to that. As I was playing the game, I was wondering who the hell would name their child Pixel, and turns out that there's several people who would name their child Pixel. I checked. I found Pixel to be very endearing on account of her struggling to get the hang of working, and having an inner voice that is constantly telling her how worthless she is. I know I can relate to that. She's having the worst luck when it comes to finding jobs, because she keeps getting mistreated and fired. I can relate to constantly losing my job. Ethan is pretty cool though. The gameplay itself is all about managing different types of cafes and food stuff, which I found to be really addictive. It just scratches some type of itch in my brain. I wanted to keep playing for that alone, but on a controller, while fun, it was really rough on my hands. So make sure you stretch regularly if you play this game. So while I really like pixel graphics, I was not expecting all that much from the story, and I was really surprised at how engaged I got. Watching Pixel grow and learn about other people as she went along made me want to push through just to see more of what would happen, even if I knew I probably should have taken a break. I kept thinking, just one more level, both because of the gameplay and because I wanted to see how things would pan out. It was the longest game I finished up until now, at around 14 hours. So after all that, the conclusion to Pixel's growth felt really earned and really well paced. At least to me, and I don't really know much about stories, but I liked it and I'm easily entertained, so. There's also a bunch of night shift challenges if you wanted to play more, but my hands would not be able to take it, so I'm probably not going to be doing those anytime soon. The game is definitely a 5 out of 5 stars for me. If it wasn't for my health, I probably would have finished it in like a day or two, and that's saying a lot. Making sandwiches sucked though. Fuck those things. Neo Cab is another visual novel. You're a cab driver living in this dystopian cyberpunk world, and you're just trying to make a living. You move to a new city to reconnect with an old friend, and that's basically where the story is at. You spend your days driving people around for money and seeing how their stories unfold. The game also has this mechanic where you can see the main character's feelings. And there's times when you will be locked out of dialogue, depending on her emotions. On paper that's pretty cool, but I found it to be kind of annoying. Seeing her be so emotional at times, to the point where she couldn't even hold a polite conversation, really rubbed me the wrong way. Even more so because I used to be like this, and it sucked. Otherwise, I enjoyed meeting the people in the city. Well, some of them, anyway. Others can go fuck themselves. The main story was definitely a bit in the background, and at the end, you get some choices, and you bet your ass I chose to get out of that city. Because I can't stand emotional manipulation, even if it's in a video game. You know who you are. It took me around 4 hours to finish, and it was chill and atmospheric. Looking back, I don't know if it's a 4 out of 5 star game, but I came away from it having a good time, and it didn't touch me inappropriately. That's a win in my book. So, I finished a few games now, and it was around this time where I hit a little snag. Okay. Alright. Oh, that looks good, actually. What? That's weird. What? Whoa. My backlog just kept growing for some reason. I'd finish a game and then I would add something else onto the list, or I would look through my library and see something that was interesting, and I would add that too. It kept going like this until I was back to feeling really overwhelmed again. It was just too many games. So I decided on some new rules. When I was prepping my backlog, I could only choose 10 games. I would pick more shorter games and only a couple of long ones, and try to mix up genres. No more adding new games unless I replaced something that was already there, and no making a new backlog until I played all the games in my current one. Keeping my focus on just a few games as opposed to a whole library made everything a lot more manageable. And with that, we keep moving forward. Since I just finished a very futuristic visual novel game with NeoCab, I wanted to jump into something different. And that game was Dreaming Sarah, a 2D puzzle platformer. It's short and sweet with some fun puzzles and cute pixel graphics. It was fun to see how all the levels connected in different ways, and how the game opened up the more items you gathered. Where it lost me was a part where I got stuck at the very end, having found everything except for a single item, that I didn't even need, by the way. And I could not get back out to look for said missing item. When I was trying to find answers online for what I thought was a bug, I ended up spoiling myself, with like the only thing that could possibly be a spoiler in this game. Turns out you can get back to the starting area by reopening the game. I wish I knew that. 3 out of 5 stars, cause I'm bitter and the game made me feel stupid. The game is pretty short, so I spent like a quarter of the 2-hour runtime being stuck, so it didn't leave the best taste in my mouth. This was mostly me being stupid though. I'm still not changing the rating. I don't regret playing the game, I just regret waking up that morning. So I've heard really good things about Transistor, and I can see why. It looks great, it plays great, the soundtrack is cool, the art style is lovely. The beginning is a bit confusing since it feels like you missed the prologue, but you'll get the pieces eventually and it'll all make sense in the end. The visual storytelling is also really interesting, and it really adds to the experience because you can see the effects of what is going on all around you. The unfortunate thing is, it didn't really resonate with me. A big part of the game seemed to be the build crafting, and that's never really been my thing. I didn't dislike it, but I went through a lot of the game kind of wishing I would just get to the end. And I was having a hard time enjoying myself for some reason. And that's kind of been a reoccurring thing in most of the games I've played. It's not like I'm not enjoying myself at all. It's just, I want it to be over. And I'm not sure why. That doesn't really make sense, does it? On the other hand, I did like having a sword with a nice voice talking to me all the time.
Look, whatever you're thinking, do me a favor. Don't let me go.
I got more invested during the last hour of the game, and when I played it a second time to get footage, I definitely enjoyed it a bit more. The ending also kind of got to me, but like in a good way. The combat is also really interesting, since it's kind of turn-based, but also not really. You can also build nukes. Just make sure you don't put all your eggs in one basket, because if you lose all your health, a random ability will become unavailable, and you'll be stuck with your pants down. Don't be like me, kids. It took me a bit over 4 hours to complete, and I almost wanted to give it 3 stars, due to my lack of joy, I guess. It had all of the pieces of a great game, and it felt like a great game. I know it is a great game, and giving it anything less than 4 out of 5 stars feels like a crime. It seems like once again I was the problem for not being able to enjoy myself in a way that I should have been able to.
One night when I was a kid, Grandma had a drink and let me stay up late. Then she started telling me about when Strandville sank.
Wavetale was next on my list, and it's a 3D platformer with a charming art style, and it's set in this post-apocalyptic world that is a lot bleaker than it seems at first. The story was enjoyable when the cutscenes were running, but the gameplay itself got a bit dull over time. Grandma's pretty funny though.
Ahoy, ladies!
Ladies, my bum.
The combat isn't much to talk about, so I'm not going to talk about it. I didn't really bother much with the side quests, as they were pretty fetchy. Even though I had interest in some of the characters, I just couldn't be bothered to go out of my way to look for the items. The best part of the game though is definitely the surfing. When you start gliding over the water and the soundtrack picks up, it feels almost magical in a way. That, and there's some really fun platforming segments Sometimes I wasn't really sure if I was enjoying myself or not. I wanted to see what happened and I didn't want to drop the game, but even though I had fun in the moment, a lot of the time I didn't really want to play, but I also didn't want to play anything else. It took me right under 6 hours or so to finish. It was alright and I enjoyed parts of it, but it didn't feel like a 4-star game to me, so I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. So, after finishing Wavetale, I kept questioning myself. It felt as though I was doing something wrong. I wasn't rushing through the games because I wanted to play something else, or because I just wanted to add them to my finished list. I just wanted it to be over. Which is a weird way to think about something you're supposed to have fun with. I was enjoying the games, but also not really. I thought to myself, I must be doing something wrong. I must be playing wrong. There's something wrong with my mindset. Why can't I spend more than an hour or two at a game before I need a break? I used to be able to do like 12 plus hours of video game binging when I was younger. Something was just off. Something was wrong with me. That's what I thought, at least.
Wake up, sleeper.
That's what I thought. At least until I played Citizen Sleeper. It was the game that made me want to make this video. I wanted to be able to go back in time and remember how much of an amazing experience this game was to me. It gripped me in ways no game has done in a decade. You're a sleeper, an artificial mind copied from a human and stuffed into a mechanical body, and forced to slave away for the rest of your days. And you finally escaped. Too bad you're actively dying. The game kind of works as a tabletop role-playing game, and you spend dice every day to do different activities and tasks just trying to get by. The sense of overwhelming dread and uncertainty had me in a chokehold. I never knew what would happen, and I had to keep playing. I had to see what came next. I watched as my body was breaking down, and my capabilities became less and less over time. As without this expensive medication, your frame would slowly stop functioning. And the more your frame broke down, the less dice you would have to use and the less work you could do. It hit so close to home as someone who's experienced burnout so severe it caused me chronic health issues. The knowledge that my body is actively decaying and being able to feel it every day and how little you're able to function really resonated with me. It was kind of painful, but in a good way, because I became so invested in the story of the sleeper. Sleepers aren't even considered people. They have no rights, they are objects, they are property. They aren't real. I relate because sometimes I feel those things about myself. I forget that I am a person. I forget that I am real. And I need to remind myself that I am real, that I am me. We need to manage the best we can, because the alternative is never being able to experience anything ever again. I can see why it's a conflicting choice though. And in the sleeper's position, I personally would never have had the will to keep going. I might be a bit dramatic, and I know there's people who's way worse off than me, but it really do be feeling like this sometimes. I was so consumed by the game that I spent around 12 hours over the course of 2 days, which was a really big difference compared to the 1 to 2 hours I had been able to play previously. It's not that I was playing games wrong, I just hadn't found the game that was meant for me. And with how special Citizen Sleeper was, it's a reminder as to why I started playing video games again. Because I want more of this. I could go on about all the different people on the space station, the different characters you meet and their stories, but I think you should experience that for yourself. It was bittersweet because you knew that nothing would last forever, even more so for an artificial body that was never meant to last for more than a decade. The game was definitely the most intense on the first playthrough, because you had no idea how to manage your resources. It's a 5 out of 5 stars easily for me. I enjoyed it so much that I decided to make a top 5 games of all times list, just to put Citizen Sleeper in there. Lucky me though, because there's a sequel, and it just so happened to be in the June Humble Bundle lineup.
Wake up, sleeper. Your body is dying. Planned obsolescence. as an ARP's gift for its escaped workers. But we can fight this. You can remake yourself here. They don't own you anymore.
So these weren't the only games I played. They were only the ones I finished. I actually tried out multiple other games in the same time frame. After having gotten through some of the shorter game, I tried out Nier Automata, but I didn't really feel like playing it after a few short hours. It could have something to do with the fact that I felt compelled to run across the map just to pick out some random item, or the fact that I felt compelled to run all across the map to try and finish a side quest. I'll definitely pick it up in the future though. I also learned that I like bullet hells, so that's pretty neat. Hellblade was pretty cool in the first few hours, but having a bunch of voices telling me that I suck and how everything I do is wrong, even though I'm not wrong, is a phase in my life I thought I had gotten past, and I didn't want to deal with it at the time. I also got stuck at a puzzle for like an hour, and it made me feel really stupid. Paused. I got into Spyro with the Legends trilogy as a kid, and it was pretty great. And this Spyro is great too, but I had an issue with my save file where I lost like 4 hours of game time, and it really took the wind out of my sails, so I paused the game. I actually thought I was going to finish Final Fantasy 15 in June, since I was already 20 hours in, but after about 2 weeks of not feeling it, I put it away for the time being. So I really enjoyed Spiritfarer up until I was like 11 hours into the game, and I got pretty much stuck because I just couldn't figure out how to unlock more of the game. And there were other stuff I wanted to play. Paused games is something I enjoyed and I plan to pick up in the future, but for now I'll focus on some other things in my library. And there was something off in the distance calling my name. So, if you managed to make it through the whole video, I'm pleasantly surprised. I wasn't sure how it would turn out, since it's the first video I've ever made, but I had a great time working on it. Mostly, anyway. Despite my goal being easy fun without the pressure of creating anything, I probably spent more time on the video than actually playing. I don't know if it'll be sustainable with how time-consuming editing is, but I'm here to have fun. And that's what I'm gonna do. Thanks for watching, guys. And until next time, if there is one.